Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final session of the Building Bridges Symposium. I hope y'all have enjoyed all of today's sessions and the entire symposium as we come to our closing panel. My name is Marquise Bradley, and today we're going to be featuring these lovely ladies as they tell us a few different things about their experience as Pathway Program students. Before we move on to our discussion, I want to take care of a few housekeeping items. One being our Q&A feature. I'm sure we've been experienced with this by now, but feel free to drop questions in there that we can answer after the chat. And also, if the spirit really moves you to have the question answered in that moment, we can see what we can do. But you can just let us know if you want that question answered during our discussion or not. Now, we also want to not forget or lose track of the overall goal of our talk today. So this panel was designed with the students in mind. So our goal is to give you the insights and knowledge that we have and give you some strategies that you can use in your daily life as you begin to dive into your musical careers or education journey, what you have. We also considered our Pathway Program managers, and our goal is to have you guys walk away feeling more supported and feeling more equipped to support your students as they guide their way to, or as you can help guide them through the program. Now, without further ado, I'd like to get started with our panelists and do some introductions. And we can start with our superstar flute player, Aalia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aalia Hanif. I'm originally from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is about an hour away from Nashville. And I'm currently a sophomore studying flute performance at Northwestern University.
Great, thank you. Now can we hear from Angelica?
Hi, everybody. I'm Angelica Hairston, and I wear a couple different hats, but I am a talent development program graduate, and I serve as the artistic director of the Urban Youth Harp Ensemble. So we actually have 3 ensemble students who are TDP students now. And I also am the founder and executive director of Challenge the Stats that empowers artists of color. And we have lots of TDP musicians on our roster. So it's great to be here.
And last but not least.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Denielle Wilson, and I'm also a graduate of the TDP program. I'm originally from Lithonia, Georgia, and I'm currently living in Cincinnati, Ohio. I just finished my master's in cello performance.
Excellent. So now we can really dive into our discussion. I themed this when we were designing the program or discussion, I guess. I thought about these 3 themes that kept popping into my head, and I kind of thought about some questions to ask our panel, and that theme is practice, prayer, and patience. These are just items throughout my own career in education have been there for me in my times of course, the struggles that go into the ins and out of being a music student, but also the glory that comes with it as we're celebrated at home for all of our achievements and accomplishments throughout our education and within the programs. And I was very curious as to what others have experienced with those concepts outside of my own mind, but in their everyday practice and in their lives. So just to get the ball rolling, my first question is about your practice habits. What did that look like? What did a commitment to your instrument and to your study of music look like while you were in high school?
Well, in high school, I went to a pretty academically rigorous high school. We had a music program, but there wasn't much of a focus on it. And I was really lucky to find the Nashville Symphony's Accelerando program, which is a similar program like TDP in Atlanta. And I just auditioned and I got to work with the second flute of the Nashville Symphony as a teacher, Leslie Fagan. And I was just open to this whole new world of what music means and what it means to work for an orchestral job, what you need to do. Like before the program, I was really confused. I liked music. I guess I wanted to go into it, but no clue where to start, how to do it, what to do. I didn't know that I needed to practice a lot. I maybe did like an hour a day. And then it was as soon as I met my teacher, she put me on a schedule and showed me what to practice, specifically like how to warm up. No, don't just practice randomly. So she really gave me all the tools that I needed to. And I don't think I would have been able to do this without being in the program and being exposed to these musicians and all the opportunities that came with it.
Yeah, for me in high school, oh, sorry. Yeah, for me in high school, I already was in a talent development program before I started high school. So I already was given some type of idea of the fact that I needed to practice every day. I was homeschooled for the first 2 years of high school, so I had to figure out just how to make sure I was using my time wisely. But then my last 2 years, I went to a school that was an hour away from home, and practicing was very hard because I would try to practice before I left home, and by the time the day was over, even though there was time, I was really exhausted. So my main goal was to try to practice every day and try to get as much done within the small amount of time I had in those last 2 years of high school. But I guess first 2 years, time management, and then the last 2 years was just trying to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and I feel like we all have a similar experience of time management and really focusing intensely. And so I actually started playing the harp when I was in 6th grade and was accepted into the TDP in 8th grade. And for me in high school, especially after going to summer camps, I realized I had a lot of kind of catching up to do with my peers if I wanted to be at that level in conservatory. And so my last 2 years of high school, I actually did a joint enrollment program. So that allowed me to kind of have more time, more flexibility in my schedule, and really focus and center in a very intense way to kind of prepare for that conservatory experience.
Absolutely. Definitely as a student, the lack of flexibility with your schedule, just taking a chunk of 8 hours plus travel time, maybe you want to eat sometime in between there. It really does make it hard to balance that life as a student. And I see a student question in our Q&A, and so I realize I really don't want to neglect student questions, I'm assuming. And we can read this. It says, how long were you in your program? And could you tell us about the audition process? So this is a prospective student. What was your moments like preparing right before the big audition? What kind of things were you doing then?
Sorry. I remember I auditioned for a cello rondo during its inaugural year, so I really had not much clue of what I was auditioning for other than like the Symphony ads and just a general overall look at it. So the audition process for me, I think I played 2 contrasting pieces and some scales, and that was the first round. And then there were 2 more rounds, one where they picked people that they thought had potential to be in the program to have trial lessons with the teachers they'd be studying with. And then after that round, then there was another round to make sure that the teacher was the right fit, to make sure that to be in this program, you have to express some sort of strong pull to want to be an orchestral musician and not just have music like as a minor. So they are really serious. And at the end of the whole audition process, I think they chose 6 people to be in the inaugural class, and that's how I got into it. And I was in it for 3 years. I started my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, I'll hop in. So my experience, I mean, I was in TDP way, way back. I'm a little older than everyone on the panel. But what I remember the most about my audition that I thought was very special is that it wasn't just playing, but there was also a time to talk. And that was really valuable for me because as a student who at the time really hadn't been playing that long, I was able to kind of communicate why I wanted to do this, what my commitment level was, what I was going to really invest myself And I think, for students who are considering applying, really get clear about that and really think about that so that you're able to communicate that. And I think for program managers, kind of implementing that as a part of the audition process is a great thing to do as well.
Yes, honestly, my experience was very similar to both. I joined TDP when I was in 8th grade, and so I was in there for 5 years. And same as Angelica, there was a speaking part. And this was my first audition experience ever in anything. So playing for people was very new for me, playing two contrasting pieces. But what I appreciated was they made the environment very relaxed, so you didn't feel like this was like a test or something like that. Because there are definitely probably other people who auditioned who had never taken that type of performance or audition opportunity before.
Great, lovely. That was a great question from, oh, sorry about that, from Angie, yes. Now, I have a similar question. Thinking about this point and, well, keeping on track with this point in your development, we understand that there's some level of commitment and foresight that you have to have with your career. You have to be able to think when you're 13 years old or 11 or 15, when you're auditioning for the program, you have to be able to see somewhere in your life you doing this 5 years later, 6 years later, 10 years later. Of course, you don't have it at that point. You've only known your school, your home. Thinking about majoring in music is like, well, I haven't even thought about majoring in anything because I'm 13. So can we describe your experience? Were you right on board? You're going to go to a conservatory and take over the orchestra, or was there some sort of doubt, skepticism, either from you or your parents?
Yeah, I can hop in. So my journey has kind of taken me in a lot of different pathways. And I knew from a young age, I had kind of made the decision I wanted to pursue music. And I didn't know exactly what that may look like. But through my time in TDP, kind of honed in, I wanted to be an orchestral player. And I think at the time, that was the goal that I knew and it was clear and that my teachers kind of understood. And so that was what I was pursuing and going for. And then when I was in college, when I was in Toronto, around that, my maybe junior year or so, is when Trayvon Martin was murdered. And to be honest, that was a point in my life where everything kind of shifted. And I made a new decision for my career and for myself, and I wanted to explore something different. And that's what kind of took me into the world of entrepreneurship. So I'll say I started with a clear mission of like, I want to play in orchestras. I was gung ho. I wanted to study with the top teachers. I went internationally. And then when I got there, things changed. And I think, if I could say anything to students, I would say it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to explore. There are many ways to have success in this field. It does not just look like sitting on an orchestra stage. That's an amazing opportunity for many, and we celebrate that. But I guess for me, my path kind of shifted in a really fun direction that I love now as well.
Great, thank you for that response. Definitely, Angelica is someone who lives that image because she's not sitting on some stage in X orchestra in random city number 2 playing Brahms, not with the harp, but still, she's a success. It's not like she's failed the talent development program. The goal is to create good people using music as a tool to do so. And I think that's something that I wanted to really just inform our younger audience about as you really begin to step into this world, because there are no ends to this game. There's no right answer. If anyone else has a response, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think my understanding of what it meant to have a career in music definitely changed. When I was younger, I just saw a performance, and that was something I was like, I really wanted to do that. My parents didn't really understand it either, so I think we were all just kind of discovering as we went. I don't think they saw that in my future, becoming a musician was going to happen. I think they wanted me to use it as a tool to move forward, and I'm really happy they had that mindset. As I moved forward in school and got to college, and I was exposed to other students who studied, took lessons and everything, but their goals were already in very specific directions. And I learned what that looked like. I think that influenced me to start kind of more making my own decision about what I felt most comfortable doing and what I wanted to follow through with. So orchestral playing was definitely one of my favorite things to do. And I also was more introduced to teaching in college as well. So finding ways to blend those two have been what I've been most focused on recently.
I remember when I was younger, I don't think a career in music ever passed my mind. I didn't really know what an orchestra was until I was in middle school on a band field trip. I played piano when I was younger, hated practicing. I never practiced. But then in high school or middle school, I started playing the flute in band, and I just liked it. I play every day. I was like, this is different. But I do come from a South Asian background. I'm Pakistani, and our cultural what we're supposed to do is probably become a doctor or an engineer, very like pushed towards academia. My family didn't really know anything about symphonies either. We were all kind of at the same boat, but it really wasn't until I got into cello rondo and I was around, like my teacher was an orchestral player. I'd get to go to all the Nashville Symphony concerts for free. I think like one of the most, oh yeah, and I also got to be in the Nashville Youth Orchestra, and we had, I think the first year I was in a cello rondo, we had a side-by-side concert with the Nashville Symphony, and I just remember that was like the moment that I had that, yeah, I really want to do this for the rest of my life. Like I looked up to those musicians, I studied with them, I went to every concert, and now I'm there. And then I think the next year, a cello rondo with our like partnership with the New World Symphony, we had an opportunity for me to go down to Miami and play in the side-by-side concert with them with Michael Tilson Thomas, and that just like that sealed the knot. Like I had to do it, and it was pretty much since then like I knew I wanted to do it, and I still want to pursue a career in orchestra, no, even though it's really especially with COVID, like we don't know, but it's my passion and that's what I want to do, and I think I'm improving and I really want to do this, and that's what I knew.
Excellent. That's the determination I think it requires when you know that's what you want. You really work forward and towards it. It's a process that is going to go on for a long while. And also, I just want to take some time to congratulate Aalia, because she'll be playing as a soloist with the Nashville Symphony very soon. So congratulations for that. I saw it on Facebook right before. And yeah, so really great job. Next, I want to kind of shift the conversation to another concept of this panel, or discussion rather. And that would be, we've seen how this practice and determination, what it looks like and what its products can do through you and your careers. So now we want to start to talk about that determination. Where does it come from? The source for that. What keeps you grounded? What keeps you motivated? The faith that you have in your practice. Where does that come from? Can you talk about our experiences with that?
Yeah, I don't mind hopping in. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me, if I'm thinking as a student, when I was in TDP, is really this idea of community. And I think what's so special about these programs, about all of these programs, I mean, if you look at the screen right now, this is a pretty powerful thing to see all of these alums who have gone through these programs, and to think of this huge network of people who have a shared experience. And so I think for me, being able to kind of lean on that network, being able to find support, especially in the past year, as tough as the past year has been in a racial reckoning and a pandemic, to have people who have a really similar shared experience to kind of lean on was definitely one thing that helped me to stay sort of motivated, and something that I would encourage students as well to think of this network as a larger family, not just your own program, but all of these programs, all of these musicians of color sort of working together to support one another and keep, stay encouraged in a time when it can be really challenging.
Yes, actually, I was thinking my point, and I was not thinking it would be different, but it's echoing very along the same lines. I think when I'm growing up and when I started playing the cello, my parents had us performing in our community locally very early, and it taught us really to not just perform in skills, but learning how to really connect with people and how meaningful what you do and what you provide, actually, how that is to those around you. Because my parents and my community was an immigrant community, and it was, I guess, seeing their pride in what we did, even though at the time when I think about it, it didn't seem like a lot. And they were seeing us struggle, they saw us grow. So seeing us then and seeing us now, I think that to me gives me a lot more faith in what I'm doing now. I'm not just doing something for myself, I'm doing something for a whole lot of other people who are currently here and those are coming later. So for me, that's what gives me a lot of faith in my practice.
Yeah, I can relate to what Danielle was saying. Like at first, because of the cultural pressure, it was kind of tough to, like when you have bad days or like get rejected from a lot of things, it's easy to be discouraged. But I think like as I was still committed to the program and still committed to practice, like eventually you get all these opportunities, and A Cello Under was a huge part in giving me those opportunities, like going to Miami and now this soloist performance that I get to do soon. It all comes together, and I think the best part out of that process has been like my family seeing it and more members of the community seeing it, and they're extremely supportive now, and it's so nice to like show this culture that I have that hasn't really been exposed to Western classical music, to see that, it's not just one race or one culture that's part of this. It's a lot of different races adding their own perspectives, and just really trying to get diversity in the orchestra so that more communities can gain more knowledge about orchestras and fall in love with the craft as well.
Lovely. So it's the sense of community that we gain. When we enter our studies, it's not just like, great, now I can go to the practice room for 4 hours a day and, get on my phone afterwards, and that's just what I do. But you then, of course, don't neglect your practice, but indulge in the community that is there. Lean on them when you need it. That may take being a little proactive. Ask for help. Don't be afraid. And that's one other aspect of community that I would like you guys, just your thoughts on. Of course, we know that how individualistic the practice can be, but also within our community, we have leaders, we have mentors to look up to. Could we all speak about our mentors and the role that they played in your development?
Yeah, I'll hop in first. Sure. I love this idea of community. I've been really diving into it lately, and I think one of the powerful things about pathway programs, for those who are in it or those who are administrators in a pathway program, is always making sure that there's a space that is like a really special, safe, sacred space for students to really communicate about what is going on. And so for me, when I was a student, we always had these family meetings, right? Like twice a year, and it's like you get food and it's this potluck, and then there's like this part of the potluck where everybody gets in a circle and you have to like share where you're going to camp, and all the college students would share their experiences, and I used to hate it at the time. Like I just did not like having to be put on the spot. But I think in that ability, I was able to hear real honest experiences that people had in this field that helped me prepare. So that, you know, by the time I was able to go study with a musician like Ann Hobson-Pilot, who was the first African-American female to hold a principal position in a major symphony, you know, when I studied with her, it was life-changing for me to be able to sit with this woman who was in a major position and see someone who looked like me. Really, it completely shifted the course of my life. And so I think developing that community so that you can sort of help students become more comfortable going out of state for a camp or flying. I went to Italy one summer. I mean, just like these big things that I never would have been comfortable doing had it not been for a community of support in TDP to help me kind of walk through some of those fears, to gain confidence, and then to be able to gain those mentors as well.
I think like my most important mentor in a cello rondo was gonna have to be my teacher, because that's who I spent the most time with, and she's the one who really taught me how to practice, how to look at things, and like I also didn't know what to do for summer festivals. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was something like some people do sometimes if they're bored over the summer, but like learning how important those summer festivals are and how to get into college, like I didn't know how the process worked or anything. And it wasn't until like my teacher really like we helped pick the repertoire like way in advance. She would sit in all of my recording sessions for pre-screens, like making sure I wouldn't record too much or if I needed to do something again. And she was really supportive. She was there the whole way. She was kind of like a coach at times when I'd be rejected from things. Instead of being upset or being mad or anything, she would just be so supportive and help me get through it. And I really think like her encouragement throughout the entire process is what made me keep going.
Yeah, I would say also my teacher at the time, he was what offered me a lot of structure at that time in my life, and I'm so thankful for it, because I didn't know how crazy I was, and he also challenged me in ways that I was never used to. I was very much a very reserved person, and he never berated me for the way my personality or anything like that. But he was constantly encouraging me to try something that I wasn't used to, and that paid off in many ways. Even after I finished studying with him and moved on to college, it wasn't so much of a surprise to work with teachers who would challenge me and push me even harder, because I knew where they were coming from. And also the art of making connections and making a good impression on people when you meet them, no matter where they're coming from or how well you know them. And keeping respectful connections, they may become really useful to you in the future. And so learning to do that, I think, in TDP and during my time in TDP has been very valuable for me.
Excellent. Definitely, your teacher is going to be a great model in your life when you're studying your instrument. They are living and breathing the dream or something close enough to it. Definitely put yourself out there. Let them know your goals. Don't be afraid to tell them that, you know, if you don't think you're ready for the big schools or the big job, don't be afraid. Let it out. If that's where your dreams will take you, even if you don't make it there. And that's something I want to talk about, just tying in another question. I'm going to assume they're anonymous, but I'm going to assume it's a more shy student who is wondering, but they ask, have you thought or mentally prepared for other musical careers other than orchestral playing if things don't work out? I know we talked a little bit about branching out and just breaking off of the orchestra route, but I wanted to focus specifically on the if things don't work out portion. What does that mean? I'm sure we all have our own doubts and fears of what if I just somehow just black out of music and it's not it, I'll have to start all over. We all know, of course, that's not how it works. The world just keeps on spinning and you keep moving with all of the knowledge you have. So Can we tell about our experience? What does that mean, don't work out, to you? And how do you get over that and deal with those emotions?
I think this has been a question that I dealt with all of high school, like pretty much constantly. What does it mean to go into this career? Like, it is really unstable. Like, even before COVID, it's hard, it's challenging, it's really taxing. But at the end of the day, I decided not to double major, for my own purposes of, if I knew I had this backup plan in the back of my mind, I wouldn't give 100% to what I really wanted to do. And I just basically forced myself to not major in whatever else I wanted to do. But with that being said, I still did make the decision to go to university. So even though I'm just fluke performance, I still have the opportunity to take whatever classes I need to. And it's pretty easy with our schedule. It isn't too hard. And like at a university, you get to meet lots of people. There's lots of opportunities, especially being in a big city. Like, there's always going to be opportunities to work with students. And like in Chicago, another Pathways program, Chicago Pathways, is here. And since like we're alumni, they love to hear from us. And like that's one way to help. And like especially in Chicago, like the West and South Side have a lot of don't have any music education. So it's really important to do the outreach part, in my opinion, to give them something. But if an orchestral career doesn't work out, or something like working in a Pathways program doesn't work out, I'd really like to be a teacher and maybe also teach and be a musician somehow. I think I've never had a South Asian teacher before, or I really haven't seen any musicians in orchestras. And if I can teach another South Asian student and give them some sort of hope, like that would make me really happy. And that's why I like to share music.
Yeah, I would add to that. It's hard to, with the doesn't work out part, really to define that. In some ways, it could just be like not winning any jobs when it comes to orchestra, things like that. But I think over the past, and this has hit home for me more very recently, is to not go into any situation, whether it's school or the application process for a job, not going in expecting the process to hand me something. I learned that in school, like just because I graduated doesn't mean that a job's just gonna appear out of nowhere. And so that also encourages me to keep my view as a little broader. Even though my main focus is music and specifically orchestra playing, I do like to keep my eyes open and ears open for other things that are in the periphery. And if it's an opportunity that I can take advantage of, or participate in or learn about, I will do it, simply because I want to grow, period. And I feel like if you're always looking at life and what you personally want to do as an opportunity for growth, period, you will never, there won't be something that just doesn't work out, because there's always something else to do. So, and I will say it's not always easy to think like that. There are definitely periods where I'm like, well, maybe I should just quit and do something else. But like Aalia was saying, I wouldn't want to go and have that in the back of my mind and give half my energy to something. I want to make sure I'm giving it my best shot. So yeah.
So I love this question. I love exploring careers. And I think what's really interesting for me in the past year, actually the majority of my income, because all of the performance income was pretty much gone, except for a couple virtual things. The majority of my income was from speaking, and was from doing sessions, and was from, leading different sort of classes with different, pathway programs and organizations, helping students kind of navigate careers. And I think what I learned was that as a musician, you learn these transferable skills. So even if you don't end up in the exact career position that you thought of, to begin with, for me, I learned as a musician to take a really big challenge and break it down into smaller pieces, right? I learned to show up on time. I learned to speak well while I had to give a presentation, and speak before I played a piece. I learned how to kind of present myself and be able to have confidence. on stage and now on Zoom. And so I think all of those elements, right? Even if you don't end up playing your instrument every single day, every single skill that you are using and working on is absolutely transferable regardless of where you go. And so I think being a musician, we need to have amazing leaders in our government who value the arts and who are advocates for the arts. We need to have administrators. We need to have doctors who understand the importance of music therapy, right? So there's so many, I think the world is really big and broad, but remembering that it's a process and all of these skills are transferable. There's no, failure. There's only sort of recreation with what you've learned.
Beautifully said. There's no failure. There's only recreation. That, I think, really struck with me. We can take a few seconds to let it. Yeah, I was serious about that. Thank you. Still thinking about all of these elements and how that ties in. We know we have our mentors, we have our community, we have our practice habits. You likely won't get that dream job tomorrow if you're watching this. You probably won't get it in the next year or the next day. And even when you start auditions, you may not get it for the next 5. You have to be patient. And that's the last element I wanted to talk about just before we open up for our full question and answer session. What does being patient look like to you? What do you do in the meantime when you're not practicing, when you're not writing emails and practicing your speeches, all of these things? How do you stay grounded and sane in your everyday life and maintain that patience that it takes? Because it's not coming tomorrow. It probably won't be there the next day either. What's that experience like for you?
I'll go first because I'm in that right now where I'm just like taking auditions and in between trying, because the silence, it's so loud. But one thing I did actually a couple months ago, took on a library job simply because I just wanted to mainly fill my time, but do something that was not playing related at all. It's a very basic job of just organizing paper, and I enjoy it so much. But it also helped me look at when I have practicing, it's more refreshing and it's easier to get back to. But finding something else to do, whether it's work or volunteering at my church, finding ways to connect with other people, especially those who are not musicians or not familiar with what I do. And it's not just about taking my mind off of it, but it's making sure I'm feeding my holistic self as opposed to just one aspect of myself.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that a lot. One thing that this question makes me think about is my teacher from Accelerando, this stuck with me the most is like, she told me after like a certain time in the day, like when you're done practicing whatever hours or whatever you needed to work through the day, think of like this mental filing cabinet and then close it and lock it and put the key somewhere until the next day. And like however silly that might sound, like thinking about it, I think it's really helped because I used to get so stressed, like I'm not practicing enough, I'm not doing this enough. And then you kind of like forget that there's a world out there. I don't think you can be a musician or even you can't communicate with an audience or share your experiences if you just lock yourself away in a practice room. So it's really trying to find that balance. And like my freshman year of college, I definitely kind of forgot about that and just kept working, and I'd be so exhausted. There'd be days I didn't want to like get up at 8 o'clock and warm up. But then this year I realized, I'm just gonna stop playing after like 5 or 6 p.m. and just give myself time to do homework or watch TV or whatever. And honestly, I think I've improved a lot more that way because I'm not just flustered all the time and stressed. I can actually like have time to process. Like your brain needs time to encode everything that you've learned as well. So I do really believe in giving yourself rest, however many hours you need.
Yeah, I don't have much to add, just championing what these women have said. I think sometimes we focus so much on like in my community, Black excellence, right? We want to have this like high playing excellence, but what about Black joy? Like these are children. Like, have fun, go outside, learn about yourself. And as Aalia was saying, that helps you become a better musician and have a more authentic performance overall.
Great, thank you. So definitely remember to feed the whole self, not just the musical self. I think that's one strong theme that I got from all of you. Now we can open up the floor for our full Q&A session. And I can take a look right here. We have another anonymous. So hopefully our friend gets there. Sorry about that. Let's just start. What do we have there? What are some things you wished you had learned earlier from your music teacher or Pathway program? And what do you think could be added to current programs?
I can hop in. This field, the classical field, it's a rough place. I'm gonna be very, very frank. For a musician of color, for a Black woman, it can be a tough field. So I think maybe more conversations around just the realities of that, right? Creating that space to have that kind of dialogue, I think is critical. So just as much as learning to play is learning how to navigate the mental gymnastics of being a Black or brown person in our world, and especially in our field. So I think that's maybe one thing that comes to mind for me.
Yes, and I will add like a very specific thing to that. For me, I wish I'd learned how to advocate for myself in some way. I realized when I got to college, a lot of students were very particular about the reason they were studying with the teacher they were studying with. For me, it was just, oh, I got into school, I got the best financial package, and this is the dude who's here, so that's who it is. And I will, if it doesn't work, if I feel uncomfortable with him or something, I'm just gonna figure out a way to just mentally be more comfortable with it. And it took me a while to realize, like, no, I have a say in how I want this to go. And if I'm not learning something, if I'm uncomfortable, if I want something, I need to say it. And I wish that that was taught, because a lot of us are coming in, our parents don't know it either. So I could tell my parents what's going on and they'd be like, sounds kind of weird, but I don't know what to do about it. Whereas a teacher or someone else in the program is familiar with that type of language and could say, this is what you can do in that situation, whether it's university or a conservatory or a summer program. I think learning those skills early is super important for students, especially students of color going through these programs and graduating.
I think one thing I wish my program did is maybe like have more of these discussions. Like I remember when the New World Symphony Fellows would come and give us some master classes, my favorite part was to pick their brains and like ask, what did they do in college? How did they practice? Like, because it's really helpful to learn from our mentors, but like something really great about the fellows is that they're not that much older than us, and they can really relate to our experiences. And I think that's really important. And also talking about how no matter like our community, we might be the best players in our area, but then when we go to summer festivals and college, like the demographic is extremely different and the level of playing is much, much higher. And just like not getting discouraged from that, especially like when we are in these diversity programs, we have a lot of these opportunities that we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise, like based on being a musician of color. And because we had to have that in high school to even like get to this point, because musicians of color, like we have to always be perfect or exceed the expectations to even be in the playing field. I think it like those conversations are really important to have so that students, when they do go to college, they're not disheartened or really discouraged by what's happening.
Great, thank you. Our next question comes from Tomoko. Hi, Tomoko. It's great to hear from you. She's a program coordinator, and she wants to know, Besides the excellent instrumental instruction, what are the Pathway Program offerings that were most meaningful to you?
There were several opportunities, I think mentioned earlier in my program, for us to socialize with other students. This was the rare time I got to meet any other Black youth who did something similar to what I did. And I enjoyed those very much. I think for the rest of the time that I wasn't with them, it just kind of gave me surety to know that I wasn't the only person. And we didn't all have to just know each other because we played the same type of music. There are other ways to connect.
Yeah, I think just building on that, the community was really vital. So when I was taking my during my junior year, I flew around to different schools to take lessons, and having an alumni network where I slept on people's couches. Like when I went to Interlochen, those uniforms are really expensive. So someone else was able to, let me use their uniforms from the previous year. I think those were really crucial, along with sort of those juries. And we also had an opportunity at one point for theory, which I find is a big barrier for a lot of students when they first get to conservatory's doorsteps. And so some of those academic support and the network support was really big.
Yeah, like about your last point, I think networking for me was a big part of being in the program, because now I have connections to all sorts of people in the Nashville Symphony, like musicians, directors, the conductor. Also, like I remember I was doing through Atelando, I got to do a master class for Michael Tilson Thomas, and this was a flute forum where they had instructors from other parts of the country and different universities. And I remember through there was the first time I got to see the professor at Northwestern. And through that experience, I was connected to him. And then by that connection, I knew more about him and his playing, where before I didn't really know that much about the teacher. So really, all of these networking, all of these connections are really important. And maybe I don't see too much of it right now, but in the future when auditioning for orchestra jobs, they're going to be crucial.
Great. I also wanted to add in, so I am an alumni of the Philadelphia Pathway Program, the Team A Artist Initiative. And one thing that I felt was really helpful, definitely not at that time, but just looking back, I really appreciate the amount of performance opportunities that I got while in the program. Just being able, well, at the time it was just getting an email and saying, hey, there's a recital on this date. You're playing, make yourself available. And at the time, it's I have this essay to write and that test to prepare for and all of these things. And it's this is just another thing I have to practice, I have to be ready. And then they'd ask again for something else the next week, or put this on your schedule for next month, and can you do this? And all of those opportunities I was getting, it felt so overwhelming, definitely at the time, but especially since we've had this time off from performing, I value them even more. Being able to present what you have when you have it, even if it's not as pristine as you'd like it to be. Being able to put yourself out there, even when you're not the most confident in your abilities, or when life is just throwing things your way. That aspect of being a professional musician isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So I think having as much practice with performance is really great, and I got to do a lot of that as a student in Pune. We have a couple minutes left, so maybe time for one more question if someone would like to shoot one in the chat really quick, or Q&A, I'm sorry. If not, then I can invite everyone to just share a closing thought, something you've been hanging on to that you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance yet.
Sure. Off the top of my head, I think of an African proverb, and it says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And I think, in all of the conversation that we've had today, networking and this community has come up a lot. My final thought for students is like, please, the four of us who are on this screen, reach out to us. Like, find us on Instagram, send us an email. It doesn't have to be perfectly thought out. Like, I would love to spend time with students who are navigating this, maybe some who are like, thinking of different career pathways, and have these conversations. So I think that's my biggest thing. Like, let's go together and please reach out to us.
To be honest, when it comes to closing thoughts, I don't have anything new to add. I feel like I learned so much from everything everyone else has been saying, honestly. But yes, I agree also. Please feel free to reach out and find us. But I also want to say I'm excited because I'm seeing so many more young musicians coming up. And I'm really excited for what you are seeing ahead of you and what you're going to be doing to change or add change to what's already happening. That's my closing thought.
I was going to say it's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to everyone else's successes. And just to understand that everyone like progresses at different rates, you're not supposed to get a job at this age, or your friend got into this summer festival at this time. That doesn't mean that you're a failure if you didn't do it at the same time. So just really understanding that everyone has their different levels of success, and not to get super disheartened to the point that you don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm sure like so many people in our community have the same thoughts as you do, especially in COVID. So like Danielle and Angelica said, like, please reach out to us, find us on anything, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you and share our experiences.
Yes, and just to confirm, feel free to reach out. I will respond. I will see it, and I got y'all. One last piece from me. I would just want to inform you that almost it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're probably doing the right thing. Because I know it can get really hard. It's like you're practicing. Well, am I even practicing right? You're walking your dog. Well, should I be practicing now? And it can be like that sometimes. It really can. But I encourage everyone to just trust that the work you are doing is working, and that it's going to carry you to where you want to go and where your dreams are taking you. So that's just, I think, the last bit I have to share, but it's been an excellent discussion. Thank you, ladies, for opening up and sharing your experiences and all of that fun stuff. I hope our audience has found a way to really take all of this in. Of course, it's going to be sinking for a while. I know there are a lot of gems in there. But as we continue to come to a close, I now would just like to welcome Jennifer Parliament, our Executive Director from the ASO, to close us out.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Looks good. All right. Well, it's really hard to follow that, I have to say, but I did want to just stop by and say thank you so much to all of our panelists. That was such a great session. Just really appreciate all of the honest sharing, the sharing of information, the sharing of perspectives, and just speaking on my own behalf. And I know I said this earlier, but I'll say it again and again, that one of the great privileges of my career is being able to be just a small part of the support of such extraordinary people as Denielle and Angelica, and getting to meet Marquise and Aalia. There's just so much hope, and I think it's just very clear that the future of classical music is in good hands with these young people, and also that our field is immeasurably improved by, enriched by having them as part of it. And so just want to say thank you to all of the great and brave things that you have already done, and for all the great things that you will do in your careers, wherever your careers take you. So thank you, thank you. I also just wanted to say thank you to that previous panel of instructors. That was a wonderful experience as well, to get to hear from you about what this means to you, and also the way that you approach such an incredibly caring relationship with your students. That's just really great. And we know our students, the future is in good hands with our students and our alumni, but also our students and alumni are in good hands with you. So thank you for that. There are just a few overall themes that I wanted to mention that came to mind from the past couple of days for me. One is the importance of listening. Going back to Joseph's keynote talk at the very beginning of this, that we don't know what we don't know. And the only way to learn is to listen and to be humble and approach these conversations with curiosity and openness. I also had a few thoughts about bridges. There are ways that the bridge metaphor works really well as we think about this. One is that the bridges that we're building can lead to lots of different places. You know, we've heard that repeatedly through the past several days. There are a lot of wonderful career paths. It takes a village to support this great field of classical music and orchestras, and there are lots of different ways that you can do that in your career. So being open to and helping prepare students for multiple possible outcomes is important. Second, knowing that there are sometimes barriers that students encounter on their paths. We have to build our bridges with significant reinforcement. And third, there's the question of introspection for us as institutions as well. So that if we are the goal at the end of the bridge that we're building, do we know that our institutions are welcoming places? And what are we doing to make our orchestras and our institutions places that that BIPOC musicians want to invest their careers and be a part of? That's really, really critical question. So again, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us for the symposium. We're eager to hear your feedback and excited to continue the conversation. And I'd also like to challenge us all to keep doing what we're doing, keep up the good work, and think of ways that you can do even more. If there's anything that we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. These sessions have been recorded, and we'll be sharing those shortly. We'll keep you posted on that, and then we'll also be sharing the contact information of anyone who agreed to have your contact information provided so that you can continue the conversation and reach out to each other post-symposium. A huge thank you to all of our panelists, to all of our planning committee members. Thank you so much. To the tech team that helped support this, to the ASO team that made it all happen, to our partners and to our presenters. Just can't thank you enough. And now, for the last word, or the last note, we're excited to share the ultimate performance of this symposium from Talent Development Program Trumpet Fellow Justin Griffin, performing Maria Thompson Corley's Luminosity, accompanied by his mother, Cynthia Thompson. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.